RWBY Volume 4, Episode 3 of Runaways and Stowaways. I really enjoyed this one. We got to see not only Blake, which I knew we would do, every volume they pretty much go through an episode where it's like, here are the girls, and, this is how it plays out. But we actually got to see both Blake and Yang in this episode, which I think means, because they, kind of did that focus on Ruby and then Weiss, that now we've gotten a scene with both the girls, or, our last two girls of the team. They're going to go into the rest of the series and, the rest of the volume, I guess, and get to, the other parts of the story. But we also got to see Sun, who is one of my favorite characters, probably even more so than he already was. He's probably always been my favorite character. Like, him, Blake, and Adam, I think, are like my top 3 characters in the whole series. And maybe it's a little bit even extra now for him because of Ruby Chibi. Him and Neptune had, like, the funniest stuff in, like, that whole first season. But they were awesome in this. It was a great action episode. We got to see yet another awesome new Grimm, which not only was like a straight up dragon. At first it was just a sea dragon, and it looked like a typical dragon. Like, it looked like Shenron from DBZ, just black, white, and red. And then it grew wings and stuff. Like, it basically evolved in front of them, and then it grew wings, and it's like, well, dang, now it's just a straight up dragon, and it's flying around, and it can swim in the water. And it was a great fight. We got to see, a bunch of cool action sequences from both Blake and Sun. We got to see Sun actually use his semblance more than once. This is only the second episode we've ever seen his semblance, if I'm remembering correctly. And we actually got to see him use it twice in one episode, which was great. And we got to see him do it in some pretty cool ways, because he uses it, the first time he makes, basically the clones, and they kind of hold the dragon back so that when it shoots like the giant beam, it misses the boat and saves everybody's life. And then he does it where the clones lift him up, and it seems like he might have a limit to 3, because that's kind of what we got to see. It was like he used only up to 3. Doesn't necessarily mean that that's his limit, but that seems to be the case, because I felt like if that weren't the case, he would have made just a bunch of them, and then, they would have just done it that way. But he makes the 3, and they launch him up in the air, and then they each jump up, and then, Blake kind of jumps between the 3 of them, or I guess the 4 of them, actually. So I really enjoyed that. I thought that was really cool, getting to see his abilities. We got to see Blake do some really cool stuff. She was jumping all over the place. We got to see her whole full outfit, which was really awesome. She takes off the bow. We get to see, like, a bunch of, ear animations and stuff, which was good. When she took off the bow, it was crazy. I was thinking, it hits the water, and I was like, man, it's the end of an era. And then it dawned on me, I'm like, man, all this stuff happens. Like, Yang got her arm chopped off. All of the school is just dead and dying and everything. And she took a bow off, and I was like, end of an era. And it like dawned on me after I said that, and I was like, wow, that's kind of a shame. I mean, like, all this other stuff didn't matter, but, we see her ears now, and I'm like, wow, that's really different. So it was just really funny going through that, and it was really cool. I love her new costume. I've said this before, but she, like, even when I first saw the outfits, I was like, she has the coolest one. It has probably my favorite color scheme, because I always, like, black and white is just a simple contrast, but it sometimes, depending on how you design it, it can look really, really great, and I think hers looks really sweet. You can see that she's much taller. She has, I wouldn't even know what to call them, but on her legs, I don't know if that's just the shoe, or if that's, like, those super long boots or anything, but it's a very cool outfit. I think it looks pretty sweet. And, Sun, of course, he's doing the same thing. So it was really fun watching them go through and have a great action sequence. They did, I don't know if this was a reference or not, but when Blake first went to fight the dragon, there was like a split-second thing. It probably wasn't a reference. It was just, it made a lot of sense. But it made me think of Naruto, because she made a clone in midair, and she actually used the clone to move out of the way. And that was from, like, maybe not the first episode. It was like the 4th or 5th episode of, like, Naruto Shippuden, which is like the second version of the series. And they had a training session where Naruto did that, and he was in midair, and he made a clone to dodge an attack, and he did this exact same thing, basically. It was like, oh, I'm about to get hit, and he used the clone, and the clone grabbed him and threw him out of the way. And I was like, I felt like that was a Naruto thing. It also just makes a lot of sense that she can use the clone, but at the same time, we've never seen that before. I mean, we've never seen it in such a physical manner, so I thought that was really interesting. The closest we've come to that was when they did, like, the fake decapitation thing with Adam, and he thought that he, chopped her head off for a second. So it kind of added a new layer. I don't know if that's her powers advancing or if she could always do that, but we've never once seen her, not that I can recall at least, we've never seen her actually like physically grab one of her shadows or have one of her shadows grab her or anything like that. There's never been interaction. She uses a shadow and she basically moves. It's almost like a teleportation type thing. So I thought that was really interesting, and I don't know, like I said, if that's just an advancement to her ability or what the case was, but I thought it was really cool. And the fight scene was great. And then we have, of course, our other side of the story, which is the more emotional side with Yang, and she's just depressed. She's at home and she seems like she's doing a lot better than I'm sure she was kind of in between the volumes. But going through it, she's just going through TV and stuff, and she kind of freaks out when they show a picture of her Adam. Like, she kind of jumps up a little bit. And then, she calms down, she turns the TV off, and then her dad comes in, and he brings her a robot arm, which everyone was guessing that anyway. Like, I'm pretty sure she's going to get a robot arm and all that stuff. Admittedly, I would prefer if she didn't, and in the, like, main costume designs, because we still don't know when she's going to end up getting, like, the duster jacket and going back to her costume, she has, like, a metal stud where the nub is, so I don't know if she's actually going to use the arm. She might at some point, but I think at least for this volume, or as far as action goes, I don't know if she'll actually end up doing that, because for whatever reason, she might just want to be strong without it. So I thought it was cool. I was surprised they actually introduced it so incredibly early, and like it was the first thing they did was like robot arm. So they might be doing that sort of misdirection thing where they just throw it at us because that's what everybody was expecting anyway, and then she just totally ditches it, which it seems that way considering the final art design for all the costumes. She only has one arm. She doesn't have the robot arm on her, but you never know. Maybe at a later point she'll decide to use it, but I like what they did with her in this episode. She's, of course, not the same Yang that we know. She's super calm, and the only time she's, like, overly excited is actually in a negative way when she drops the glass, and it instantly makes her think of Adam, and she, like, freaks out, and she, like, hyperventilates for a second, and I thought that was a great scene. It was like, man, it just shows, because she's going through, when they do, like, the household stuff, I thought that's what it was going to be. Like, she's sweeping, and she's getting the mail and stuff. And I thought it was going to be simple. It was just going to upset her. Like, oh, I could have caught that if I had my other arm, because I would have just, bent down and grabbed it really fast. But it ended up going into a much worse, position, because it, sent her into, like, a flashback where she lost her arm and could have easily been killed, because she and Blake together weren't able, to defeat Adam. So I like how they did that. It's sad to see, especially from Yang, because it's basically she's the opposite of who she used to be. But I really loved it. I thought it was really well done, and I'm excited to see where they take these two characters, because they both seem to be struggling in very different ways. The son assumes that Blake is going on like a one-woman mission against the White Fang, and she's kind of doing the opposite, where she just wants to go home. Like, she needs to kind of find herself, and so she's going to menagerie, and I'm excited to see that. I knew that's where she was going because it was in the opening, so I was super excited about that. Once they did like the World of Remnant thing, and I saw the opening, I was like, oh, she's going to where the faunas are able to live free. So I'm excited to see what they do with that. We still have the opening sequence where it appears to be her sister and her father, so who knows 100% about that, but I'm excited for where they're taking both these characters. They each have a very different path to getting to where they want to be. And so does Weiss. I mean, I feel like RWBY honestly has the least to do as far as change and get to a new position where she wants to be. I feel like she's kind of doing exactly what she needs to be doing. She's going on this mission, and they're basically going to beat the bad guys. But the rest of Team RWBY is like, Weiss is trapped, and that's all in the open. I feel like she has the most obvious kind of storytelling in the opening sequence, where it's even, they even match it up with the words, where it's like things can't hold us back and stuff, and she's trying to basically make the full suit of armor to escape. So I'm very excited to see them do that, because for one, it'll be a great power to see her develop, but also that's so different from her breaking away from the family structure. So we have to wait for it, of course, but I'm just excited that that's what we're getting from Weiss this volume. And then, they show off the Blake and Yang stuff, and we see how they're each you know, even Blake, when they have the scene where it's like she's with her dad and sister, like right after this happy moment, she has like a very sad face and she kind of looks off into the distance, and it's like even with family, she has this internal struggle where maybe it is a part of, you know, the stuff with Adam, or not, either not being able to beat him, or their former relationship where they were so close, where he was, you know, this formerly great mentor to her. So everyone has a lot of craziness to go through, and I'm excited to see where, you know, we start going with this. We have just a crazy little ending, which got me really excited, and I saw this in some of the comments as well, but maybe it's just the looks, and it, you know, it doesn't actually mean anything, but Emerald, in these past couple episodes, or in the premiere in this one, every time they show her, she seems to kind of freak out. Like, they have the opening sequence when the Grimm are all coming out of the, basically, like, tar pits, and Mercury, you know, Mercury's like evil. He's gonna just, whatever, it's gonna be what it's gonna be. But Emerald seems to be changing a little bit. Like, she seemed completely distraught by that opening sequence. Like, it just messed with her head. And then in this episode, when the weird floating jelly thing comes in, you know, they each have a weird look at it, but Emerald actually seems like she's a little bit scared. And when I saw that, I was like, that's the second time I've noticed she's not, like, calm in this situation. And it's one thing to, you know, like with Mercury, where he's like, you know, kind of like, what the heck is this thing? It's one thing to be uneasy, and then for her, she just seems completely restless when stuff happens that she doesn't like, or is completely disturbed by. It's almost like she really believes that she could die at any moment, and that's kind of the face that she continues to give off. Like, this is so bad, they might just kill us both right now. And that seems to be where, at least just based on those couple of looks, it's only like 2 scenes, but it seems like they might be hinting at something with her, where she might decide she doesn't want to be this deep into all this mess. She might kind of go rogue and do her own thing, which, you know, if she, as an important character, eventually that would just lead her to being with the good guy. She won't just be on her own forever. But it was something I noticed. I was like, man, I wonder if they're going to be doing something with her. So could just be she's freaked out by the thing. But I don't know. You know, I've said this before. Every little thing means something, you know, in RWBY. So I thought that was interesting. And then, of course, we have this stuff with Salem and Cinder, where I don't know what the heck was happening with Cinder. I guess it was some form of power, you know, the maiden's power within her, that was either reacting to what happened to her, or, excuse me, it was something bad. It was like she was clearly, you know, uncomfortable, and it seemed like Salem had some sort of control over what was happening, because she kind of had her arm out, and it looked like she was trying to, like, bring something out of her body or something weird like that. And it was hard to tell. I was like, I don't really understand what's happening, because there was no physical representation of what we were seeing. And of course, there was literally no explanation as to what we were seeing. It was just, you can't let it control you. You have to, or you have to make it fear you or whatever. And I was like, I don't know what exactly she's struggling with. So at this point, all I can think of is that somehow her abilities as a maiden are either trying to detach from her, or aren't allowing her to heal. Because I would think that she'd be able to heal what happened to her, considering how they say, like, it's such an insane power. And it's hard to tell exactly, you know, considering Salem as a character in general. But I get the sense that regeneration and possibly immortality isn't exactly a stretch for this universe. It's just hard to tell. This woman is literally all white with, like, veins going through her. I don't know what the heck she's supposed to be. So, based on her visuals and just my mind, I don't think that it's insane that Cinder's ability as a maiden would allow her to heal. So, don't know. That could be what she's dealing with. Maybe there's some sort of overarching power that attaches all the different maidens together. Who knows? And she's trying to control that ability, which is like the ultimate ability to find the other maidens and kill them, and, you know, take their power and have it all together. But I don't know. You know, there's nothing that we physically see. It just seems to be something within her she's struggling to deal with, and we just have to see exactly what that's going to be. So I'm excited for that. I'm hoping, because now they've officially gone through showing us all of Team RWBY. My hope is that we go back to that kid from the first episode, because we still don't know anything about him. My theory at this point, since there's nothing to say otherwise, my theory is that he is going to end up being one of the maidens, or he currently is a maiden already. So I'm hoping that we end up going back to him. I don't know if one of the other characters are, going to run into him. If anything, I would assume it's going to be Team Ranger or Junior. But we have to see. They've shown the girls now. I doubt they'll be showing other characters and what they're doing, because they aren't Team RWBY. So if you're not, if you're not with them, you don't get shown just yet. So we'll see what happens. Or unless you're the villains, they get, they have their little time in the spotlight. But we just have to wait and see what we get next week. I do hope that they go back to this kid and we get some explanation from him, some name. His name may have shown up in the first episode, because I think he did technically grunt. So they have, they still have the voice actor there, because that's what they do for Cinder. Like, it's still, you still see Jessica Negri's name, because even with like the little grunts and stuff from the premiere, she still technically did those grunts and stuff, so they have her name in there. So the kid's name might be in the first episode. I never really checked, but hopefully we end up going back to him. But either way, I'm excited. We've seen where all the girls are, glimpses of what they're dealing with, how they're handling it or not handling it so well. And now we can get into the rest of the volume and just kind of kickstart the main story. I have a bit of a suspicion we also might see the crazy guy Tyrion in the next episode as well, because he's going on his mission to find RWBY. And I'm still going to assume, because once again there's nothing to prove otherwise, that everything happening with Salem and the evil villains is all in like that other territory that looks like a continent made out of a dragon. So I'm still going to assume that's where they are. So we might not see them, because they'd have a crazy journey to get to, Team Junior or Team Ranger. I'm always going to go back and forth because I don't like Ranger, but I want to say the actual title. But we have to wait and see. Well, who knows? It's RWBY. Like, you never know what story is about to get thrown at us. One day it's a crazy action episode. Next time it might make us cry. You just don't freaking know what's going to happen. But I'm excited for this next one, of course. Definitely want to know what you guys thought about this episode. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, least favorite parts. And we've gotten some pretty good stuff out of these past couple episodes. We're only, going into episode 4, which I can't say I'm mad about. We already got all of Team RWBY in. I kind of hate that, I feel like they do this, I think they did this before, but I feel like whenever they do that sort of storytelling thing, it's like, here's an episode for RWBY, and then here's one for Weiss, and then here's Blake and Yang. Alright, let's get to everything else. I feel like they never get full episodes for either of them, because it's like, alright, we don't want to take that much time. But RWBY and Weiss always seem to get like the full 30-minute things. And RWBY, of course, she had like a little bit of stuff even in Weiss's thing. And she's obviously the main or so that makes sense. But I feel like Blake and Yang always get like the short end of it. It's like 30 minutes. You guys, or not even 30 minutes, of course, because of the episodes. But, you get your 10, 15 or whatever. And then you get your 10. And then you two, you split it up and you get like 6. And Yang really got the short end because, of course, with it being all action and stuff, there was a ton more Blake in this episode, which still don't hate. Obviously, we're going to get all the story we need from this volume. But, I always feel like they kind of get the short end sometimes, where it's like, oh, or they always do, not they always, sometimes, that doesn't make sense. But I feel like they do. So, not exactly mad about it, because they told us the story they wanted to tell us. We'll, of course, get way more story as the season continues, but I noticed that it seems to be like a little trend. It's like RWBY and Weiss get their whole time, and then Blake and Yang just have to split it. So, I don't know. That's sad for them, especially because Blake is my favorite out of the whole team. But enjoyed this episode. Like I said, I want to know what you guys thought about this one. Favorite parts, least favorite parts. But I really want to know where you guys think this is headed now that we've gotten all 4 of our girls. They've given us their glimpses and everything like that. Of course, we have kind of the main stuff. One of the big things, of course, is where Blake and Yang are going to be headed next and what Weiss is going to do to escape. But there are a million other elements. We got whatever the villains are planning, the stuff with Ozpin, whatever this relic is supposed to be, which I assumed was supposed to be his weapon. And that's why Salem, asked Cinder, like, did you actually kill him? Because they can't find his weapon, which apparently is a relic. That's my guess, of course, is that his weapon, or maybe he just had something on him. That was a relic. Who knows? But there's that storyline. Crow, of course, looking for him. Where did Ozpin go? Where is Crow going? Why didn't we see Zwei in this episode? That's all valid questions. But I want to know where you guys think they're headed for this volume. And, of course, what you thought about this episode in general. So please comment below. Let me know. And thanks for watching.